Hey everybody, this is Robert from Black Belt Gaming. I hope you're doing well. It is October 2023, the season of Halloween. What a great time to talk with you about a newly released tabletop role-playing game focused on dark fantasy gothic horror. It is called Corpse Kings. I've been in discussions with the writer and designer of the game, Wade K. Savage. This is version 1.0, and it was a review copy that was graciously given to me by the writer. Corpse Kings was released on October 1st. It has beautiful art inside, and the art is done by AI. The game was heavily inspired by Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft. It uses a D20 and D6 custom dice system. However, if you really like the setting and the NPCs and such, you can easily transport this information over to your own Dungeons & Dragons game, regardless of which edition you're using. I'm going to take you through the Corpse Kings kind of in the following order. We're going to start with a little bit about setting, talking about the beings, the system, some of the gear, the classes, the NPCs, the monsters, and then sort of wrap things up about the adventures at the back of this document. The game is currently sold for $15 on Drive-Thru RPG. It is in PDF format, widescreen landscape design. This is currently not available on a print on demand. I don't know if that will be something that will come about in the future. And it is recommended by me at this time that you use a device to read this, a computer, a tablet, or a phone. I do believe that this would be quite costly to print out because there is so much amazing artwork. I just think it will burn through a lot of ink. So who are the Corpse Kings? The Corpse Kings of Nazai are a legendary trio of necromancers who are said to have forsaken their humanity and climbed the ominous Black Tower of Nazai in search of eternal life as undead rulers. They were able to successfully battle their way to the top, this warrior and wizard and rogue, and they were able to unlock the secret power within the tower and become immortal kings. They set upon dominating the world, and city after city fell before their undead army. What was this Black Tower? It is a mysterious and foreboding structure located in the heart of the city, and it is rumored to be the source of immense power wielded by the Corpse Kings. The Black Tower is made of obsidian and cursed black stone, and its walls gleam with an otherworldly sheen of blue light. It is believed that the tower was brought into existence by the Unseen, an entity worshipped by the inhabitants of Nazai as a deity. The Unseen are gods of death. They are worshipped and revered as the ultimate authority on death and undeath, and it is believed that they have granted the gift of everlasting undeath to the Corpse Kings who rule over the city. As the kingdom of the Corpse Kings expanded and grew, the city became a metropolis, and it is broken into different districts. For example, the Shadowed Hollows, where the ghouls roam. The Eternal Rest, dotted with tombs and graves, is where the undead roam. The Bloody Fangs district, where the vampires run their businesses and have luxurious buildings and nightclubs. There's the Necrotic Mists district, which is where this dense fog hangs in the air at all times. It is filled with beautiful architecture. The district is steeped in mystery because the wraiths roam there but are very rarely seen. And then there is the Unseen's throne, which is in the heart of the city, and this is where the Corpse Kings rule. From here, this area is very heavily patrolled, and it is the center of religious worship for the Unseen. There is a lot more information about the city, different places you can visit, and numerous NPC profiles, which I'll touch on a few of those later. But don't be fooled. It's not a city just roaming with the raging undead. Humans live there, and people visit there. There are laws, and these laws are enforced by the Corpse Kings and their guards. There is law and order, and there is an economy that thrives. People come in and out. Some people even visit to go to the nice restaurant that is there. For example, here is the restaurant run with a staff of ghouls. They make some very fine dishes. Here's a menu. For example, a glass of Nazai fire wine costs 10 crowns. Garlic-free toasted bread, to be nice to those vampire visitors, cost 5 crowns, and so on. So what kind of beings populate the city? What kind of being can you play? You can play a vampire, an undead called a corpsekin, the Drakari, a rare breed of demon, the Gorgulia, which is a mysterious race that dwells within the bowels of Nazai. They sort of remind me of kobolds, actually. The Wolven, sort of the werewolves. The unnatural, these are humans that were born and raised in the city and have dealt and struggled against the forces of the supernatural all their lives. The wraiths, the Anak Lapar, which are these childlike creatures known to be cannibals. They kind of look like troublemakers. They are intelligent and vicious and often make up a significant portion of the small criminal gangs that populate the city. The Worm Chosen, one of the oddest beings here. These are animated corpses filled with spectral worms that writhe and squirm within, and they are considered to be living embodiments of the will of the unseen. You can even be a magically imbued Rotwight. Well, let's talk about the system the game uses. Here is an example of a character sheet. When you're creating a character, you take your 4 core attributes, and you start by distributing 20 points among body, mind, soul, and spirit. Body will be your ability to do physical attacks, your physical prowess, your agility, your strength, your endurance. Your mind is your ability to remember facts, solve puzzles, decipher arcane scripts, all kinds of things like that. Spirit is your willpower, your determination, your focus and concentration, even your ability to inspire others. And soul is very important for spellcasters. This is your connection to the mystical and metaphysical. You level up in this game, and you can go up to level 20. This chart shows the experience points required. You can gain experience points as you solve puzzles, complete quests, or defeat your enemies. You start with 10 hit points, all characters do, and you level up. As you level up, you gain 2 more hit points per level. You start with 5 skills, and you gain 1 additional skill every 2 levels. You start with 20 points to distribute among your 4 core attributes, and you gain 2 more points every 5 levels. There are no specific classes in the game, but there are some guidelines for how to mix your skills and the type of being that you are, and to sort of put a creative name with it. So there are some guides on how to do that. For example, if you wanted to play an undead sentinel, these are described as an elite group of undead who serve as enforcers of Nazai and are often referred to as bone breakers due to their ruthless methods of enforcing the will of the Corpse Kings. So here we have some recommended point distributions at the top for your core abilities, and then we have some recommended skills. This is sort of a career guide. Some of these skills you can take right away, others you may have to level up and earn later. But this will allow you to develop your character into becoming the Undead Sentinel. There are other examples like the Vampire Necromancer, the Wolven Gravestalker, and a Nazai-born Duelist, and others. I think the heart of the system is really the skill system. There are about 65 different skills you can choose from, I believe. And then also there are 5 different schools of magic with 5 different spells per school of magic, so 25 different spells. They work in the same manner. You need to have a requirement met, such as you need a 2 body in order to take the punch skill. Once you've done that, you are given a target number. For the punch skill, it's a 16. You roll a d20 and you need to get a 16 or less in order to attempt a punch. Should you succeed, then you roll a d6 to determine your impact assessment. According to that d6 roll, you might end up missing and doing 0 damage and leaving yourself open to a counterattack, all the way up to doing sort of a critical hit where you knock your opponent off their feet and do them 4 points of damage. Another standard skill might be Slash, where you can do as much as 7 points of damage. Spells, especially attack spells, are going to work in much the same way. Not all skills are going to be focused on combat. For example, a being-specific skill here, something for a wraith, like corpse walking, allows the wraith to make their check and roll the d6 to determine if they can possess their target. Looking at necromancy here, animate dead. Should you make your roll your d6 to determine if you can successfully raise a corpse under your control. Or you can go with bone explosion and roll well on your d6 and you can do as much as 10 damage to your opponents. Gear, especially weapons and armor, play an important part of your character. Let's take a look at some for example. When you use a weapon, it's going to boost your damage output. So for example, if you were wielding a shadow axe, which is a cruel blackened axe with serrated edges that seem to drink in the light, it requires a 10 body to wield, and should you hit an opponent with it, let's say you hit them with your slash skill for 5 damage or so, this is going to add an additional 8 points of damage to that. Your game can go up to even more powerful blows than that, depending upon the gear that you allowed your characters to wield, such as a cursed warhammer, which can do up to plus 17 points of damage. Ranged weapons will work much in the same way, and you may be wondering, with so few hit points, how in the world can you survive that? Well, there's shields and armor. Shields can deflect some armor, such as a round shield might deflect around 4 points of damage. And some different types of armor, such as bone mail, can absorb up to 22 points of damage should you be able to wear it. You need a 17 body to put that suit of armor on. So you can definitely see how ranged attacks and melee attacks can be boosted, and then again how that damage can be reduced. But what about magic? I spoke to the designer about this, and I said the magical damage output with the skills seems to be fine, but I didn't see so many options in the gear section to boost magical damage. And so he was thinking about doing some revisions to the spell's damage output, but I think a quick fix for version 1.0 is to make use of magical items. Give the characters a chance to use some different implements. For example, a magical item listed in the game is the Scepter of Flames. It's a fiery wand that crackles with power and gives +6 fire damage to your fire spells. Most of the other magical items listed seem to give you a boost to your statistics, like your core attributes, or they may give you a chance to boost your impact assessment rolls. But in order to just raise the damage number, in order to fire your way through some of that heavy armor that your opponents might be wearing, give them some magical implements here to boost their damage output. That's my suggestion. Healing magic is very rare in the game, so what you'll want to do is make use of some alchemy and herbalism. And you can find some examples here. Natural healing can occur. For each day that you rest, you can recover 1d6 hit points. But if you find something like grave moss, which is a rare fungus found growing on gravestones in the cemetery, you can boil it and ingest it, and it can restore up to 5 hit points per dose. There are numerous NPC profiles which you can use to help populate your city. For example, here is Glimmerweave the Warlock, level 100, 200 hit points. You see his different scores. His spirit and soul are exceptionally high. And, you can put him in your game. There are others as well, like Alyssa the Green Rogue, Azazel, the Knife of the Nazai, the Faceless Prince, and others. Just to repeat again, in case I didn't mention it, if your character goes down to 0 hit points, they experience the true death, and your character is dead, possibly forever. So I'm a fan of tinkering with systems, and I enjoy reading about different role-playing games and how they work. I asked the designer of the game, what if there's something that you need to adjudicate that you don't have a specific skill for? Like, shouldn't anybody be able to throw a punch? Do you really need to select the punch skill to do that? Or wouldn't anybody be able to look over and possibly see something? Like a spot roll, perception check. What about if you were on a ship, like you see in this picture, and this monstrous beast attacked and you were nearly thrown overboard and you're trying to hang on? What skill would you use there? And so his advice really went back to how I remember we handled things in early AD&D. You make an attribute check. So go to one of your 4 core attributes and make a d20 roll and try to get equal to or less than that score. And then you're able to succeed. But let's go back to the punch example. What would be the difference then between having the skill punch and just trying to throw a punch unskilled? Well, I've been thinking about that. I didn't want to pester the designer too much with my questions, but I was thinking that maybe you make your core attribute check and maybe you just do a single point of damage with no special effects. But another idea was maybe you want to follow the impact assessment flow of the game and keep that consistent. Maybe if you're unskilled and you're doing something like a basic skill that really everybody should be able to attempt, maybe let them try an attribute check and then maybe roll a d4, and maybe they're not able to get those 5 and 6 level successes. And then on the other hand, to reward players that do choose the skill, maybe you want to let them be able to re-roll 1s so that they don't get those critical failures. That's just purely my brainstorming going on. You can tailor the game to your tastes. What if you wanted to add something into the game that wasn't currently there? For example, scrolls. What would you do? Well, I've been thinking about this too, and again, this is my brainstorming going on. Maybe you would allow some scrolls to have some of the spells on them. And what you might do, instead of making a soul check, maybe what you would do when you use a scroll is to make it more of a mind check to see if you can successfully read the magical script. And then, should you be able to cast the spell, maybe again, you might want to limit it to success levels 1 to 4 or something. Maybe not as good as a master necromancer should be able to do, getting a critical success. Just a thought. There are various monsters in the game that you can use. For example, the white rat here, it will bite you, and it will roll a d20 needing to get an 11 or less. On the impact assessment roll, a 1 or 2 will not do any damage, but a 3, 4, 5, or 6 will inflict either 1, 2, 3, or 4 points of damage. Should you manage to kill one of these and collect its tail, you can sell it. It can be used in soups, and you can possibly collect 3 crowns for it. There are other creatures, different kinds of birds, cats, hounds, hogs, horses, and other almost dinosaur, turtle-like looking creatures, imp bats, and some things that you absolutely don't want to mess with, such as the undead shark. This thing has 20 points of armor, and if this thing bites you, it's going to need to roll, it's almost automatic, it's going to need to roll a 20 or less on the 20-sided die. So unless there's some sort of external modifier, this thing's probably going to bite you. And if it rolls a 1 on the impact assessment, you're lucky, it missed. But anything over that, and you're taking anywhere from 50 to 250 points of damage. This thing is level 100 and has around 500 hit points. So leave these guys alone. Towards the end of the PDF, you will find some sample adventures. One is a little more based on story. The other is a bit more of a dungeon crawl type of adventure. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on about Corpse Kings. I recommend you check it out. You might be interested to play a rules light, gothic horror fantasy role-playing game, or you might just be interested in the setting and porting this over to your own role-playing system that you like to use. It's great for either way. So check it out. Corpse Kings on Drive-Thru RPG.